Good afternoon. My name is Janet Travers with the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild. We have with us our next author who wrote a story for our anthology. Good luck with that. Her name is ShuJen Walker Askew, and here she is. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well.
How is the backseat of your car? Are you cool enough?
Yeah, I'm cool. It's a brand new car, so it's nice.
You are part of the San Diego Writers Editors Guild board of directors.
That's correct. Yes.
What is your position there?
I am right now. I run the San Diego Writers Guild critique program, so I oversee that.
What does that entail?
The writers submit 3 pages of their work to the reviewers, and I'm the liaison between them, the writers, and the reviewers. From there, they'll receive a critique back, and then I'll give that to them as well.
Is that free? Is there a fee?
It's a $20 fee to submit your first 3 pages. And then once the reviewers want to see more, then you submit the next 30 pages or the first 30 pages pretty much. And that's all for $20.
So it's a pretty darn good deal. How do you find that? Do you find you're learning from it, or is this something you're already good at?
I'm learning from it, reading works from different people and seeing how they write and how the critiquers critique their stories, making sure everything kind of falls in line. We're trying to give positive vibes and, with great criticism, but just more positive to help the writers.
How many years have you belonged to the guild?
Probably about 5 years now and about maybe 3 years on the board.
What is the thing that you find most beneficial?
I like how we come together as a community, a writing community, and we try to help each other succeed in our writing goals. I like that. I like meeting new people as well and working around people who are dedicated who volunteer to actually help.
For the anthology, good luck with that. You wrote a short story called The Robots.
Yes.
How did I have it right here? Enjoyed it thoroughly. I read it today. What made you come up with that?
It started with the class I was taking, and one of the prompts was to reuse a fairy tale that's common, like, say, Jack and the Beanstalk. And so I did that, but those robots were supposed to be the beans, but it turned out totally different once I got the robots in there. It just didn't go that way, so it went a different way, where it's still similar, where he's getting the robots in there to see what's going on, and that's how the story went. So, yeah, that's how I kind of...
That's a fun thing to note. I wish I could sneak that in like a prologue or something, because that's very cool. I like that a lot. Do you remember the first story you ever wrote?
Yeah, I wrote a story. I have a son who's on the autism spectrum. And so the very first story I wrote was when I found out he was diagnosed at he was 2 years old. We were sitting with a bunch of parents, and we were all very intense in the classroom, learning about how speech will turn out as the kid grows older. I wrote a story, almost like a creative nonfiction story about that. The room where we wanted to cry, but nobody would drop a tear. And so that was the first story I wrote, and that was at City College and at Mesa College, actually. And then I got picked for that in one of their anthologies, my very first story.
That is the healthiest therapeutic thing to do, given your circumstances. So kudos to you. That just sounds beautiful to me.
Yes.
I understand that a little bit, which we don't have to go into, but I have a similar circumstance. When did you first start writing? I bet you it was before, when you were younger.
Yeah, I actually wrote a novel first. I always dreamed about writing some kind of fantasy novel. And so I finished writing it. But when I tried to pitch it to an editor, I didn't have the correct elements to write in a story. And so that's what happened. From after writing the novel and seeing what's supposed to go in there, I had to backtrack. So I went to classes on creative writing and learning from there. I fell in love with short stories. And after that, I started writing more short stories. And because you can get those done quicker, 3 to 5 pages or something like that, I felt more positive that I could go and tackle my novel. So that's where I started. I started with the novel first for myself. But then when you realize you try to sell it to somebody, you need to write for the audience. And so that's what happened.
What happened to that novel?
It's still there. It's sitting on my shelf. I deal with it a little bit, changing the outline a little bit because I've learned more in writing. I've learned more how to do certain things now. I'm still tweaking the different elements to it. So it's still there. It's not quite done yet, but maybe it was done like 5 versions ago, but I'm still working on it.
I don't know everything, but that is the reverse of what most people do. Anybody that I've spoken with is you went from a novel to short stories.
Yes.
Kudos to you. How about when you were growing up? Did you have a lot of books around your house? Did you have readers in your family?
Yes. When I was growing up, I liked to read. I love to read. I love to watch a lot of films, movies, TV shows. A lot of my imagination comes from that. Twilight Zone. That's probably where the robots also, that whole fantasy type thing. I was just an avid reader and watch films, basically. I loved them. That's how it came from.
That's terrific. So that was how you decided which form or genre was right for you.
I started off with fantasy writing, sci-fi fantasy. I love that. But then I took a class and the teacher was telling me that I should write what I felt on the inside. And I didn't want to do that because it hurts. It's better to write fantasy stuff, sci-fi, where you're just kind of imagining things. But to write what really, really hurts was really hard and started with my son having autism and then going from there. That actually made me go into the category of creative nonfiction. And that's where most of my stories have been published in creative nonfiction. And then every now and then there's a fantasy story that gets published as well.
This is super interesting to me. If you found a way to express yourself or take care of life's problems, for lack of a better word, you chose this genre to help you get through it. Is that's kind of what you're saying?
Yes, that's how it came about. And now I write stories like that.
Obviously, you have a talent for it because I read your stories. You went into fantasy or science fiction, and it just came naturally. Maybe was it because you loved the Twilight Zone? Do you think?
Oh, yes. Dialogue comes easy to me, even action, doing action that comes just easy, natural. Since I've seen it, I write scripts as well.
So the fantasy or science fiction realm.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Where do your ideas for your work come from?
They come from my life experience. Sometimes I have a moment where I want to capture, most people capture in a photo. I want to capture in writing. And so I talk about certain things that happen that I don't want to forget. Kind of like I said, a birthday party where only 3 people showed up. I wanted to capture that gut wrenching, hard kind of moment that was really hard for me. It's interesting to see it years later. And I just laugh like, wow, I can't believe it's almost a living diary, but it's in words. Kind of like that. That's where my ideas come from.
Do you find you're proud of yourself that you got through it? You wrote it down and you can look back on it and say, I did it in a way, right? 3 kids show up.
Well, actually, no kids showed up, but it was the lunch lady and her grandkids that showed up. The lunch lady came and brought her grandkids. Otherwise, there were no other kids there. Just nobody showed up. That's what was hard. The lunch lady pretty much saved the day. And that was one of the other stories I had written.
I know someone who stopped having any parties, just gave up. You didn't.
No, I didn't.
That says a lot about you. And look at you, it's your positive, excellent attitude. So I'm sure it's beneficial, to say the least. Which character was most challenging to create, would you say, in all of your writing, and why?
The challenging one is well, if you look at my novel, the main character didn't particularly have a goal. So he just kind of just bounced around. And I guess a lot of people were pointing that out. There's no goal. There's no goal. And so that was a hard one for me because he was pretty much a coming of age situation. And the goal was to survive being adolescent. And that's just not good enough for your character just to kind of bounce around. The character needs a goal and you need to have obstacles in a way to keep the story going. And so that was one of my challenging things is to create a character with goals.
They have to go somewhere, they have to move, they have to have change.
Yeah. I'm finding that, yes, that's true. But I'm finding also you got to, it just depends on how the story is set up. Maybe it works until the person gets a goal after a few chapters or something like that. So I'm learning as well. That's why my novel's kind of sitting there, but it's going to get published.
How long ago how old is that novel?
It's probably like 7 years old right now.
We talked to somebody who had 28 the other day. Now, if that was your most challenging, what is your most favorite character that you've written?
I like characters where, like a villain type characters, where they do have a goal specific to stop the, like the protagonist from doing something. But I like those because they're fun. You can just do whatever and go crazy and say whatever kind of thing. The things that I would not say in life, in real life, but in my story. And those characters, they can do that kind of stuff because they're just pretty much throwaway characters. So the ones that don't have certain restrictions on them are the ones that I find fun to write. Like in the robots, it was the guy that, he's eating the burrito and he just sitting. Yeah, it was fun writing that character. It's just crazy. It was really fun.
To get somebody's attention, that's like he pops into somebody, grabs his burrito, and just starts eating it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic because you're like, what is going on here? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? That was so good. I really enjoyed that. How many rewrites do you do? Let's start with your short stories.
I usually write it maybe once to get everything out and then maybe 3 times, probably about 3 times. And it really just depends. Sometimes I'll give it to others, like reviewers to look at it, and then I'll rewrite it again. The ending might not come together. So maybe between 3 and 5 times.
Are you in a critique group?
Yes. I'm in a critique group that we meet once a month and we kind of go over our stories, about 1,500 words, and it's pretty good.
So you have a limit of 1,500 words. You
Yeah.
meet once a month. How many people are in your group?
There's about 5 of us.
So you get to cover all 5 usually. It's a long meeting.
Yes. About half hour per person.
Do you ever Google yourself?
I have Googled myself. I did some acting back maybe when I was in my 20s. So I have stuff on IMDb. It's just like little things here and there. So when I Google that, I just laugh at those days. It's fun days. And the fact that I'm writing, at that time, I was not a writer when I was acting. I was just doing it for fun to kind of get out of my shell and not be shy and stuff like that. And so that was a lot of fun. But now I'm writing those scripts that I used to read, which is even more kind of mind blowing.
You seem pretty extroverted. Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
It depends. I'm in between. It depends on the situation. I've gotten better over the years, more extrovert.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you rather read a book or watch television?
Well, when I was younger, probably read a book, but now that I'm older, probably watch television.
Really?
Yeah.
But it ties into if that's what got you interested in the first place. Look, I'm older than you. But Twilight Zone was where it was at. Remember Thanksgiving?
I know. Yeah.
All day long. And
Yeah. I remember that.
you watched it on Christmas too.
Yeah.
You just
And I,
sat through that thing.
yeah. Right now, I actually listen to the audio because on Spotify, they have the audio version of
Oh,
Twilight Zone. Oh, I love it. Love it.
be nice to me or I'm going to kill you. Remember Kathy the doll on the stairs?
Oh, yeah.
When you're finished writing, do you have a routine every day? Do you have a schedule that you adhere to when you write?
Right now, I don't have a schedule. Whenever something pops in my mind, then I get down to writing it. I'll grab my laptop out. Sometimes on my cell phone, I'll start texting myself or writing something on the notes, and then I'll go into like my laptop or computer and then just write from there. That's pretty much whatever comes to mind at the moment, and then I write that way. I don't have a schedule now. When I was working on my novel, there was a schedule. Every morning, I would get up, write for about an hour, or even every night, write for about an hour. But that's changed because having kids, I'm just exhausted. So I go to sleep when they go to sleep and I wake up when they wake up. But I definitely wish I can get back on that schedule because then I would get my story finished quicker.
Well,
So,
they'll eventually get older. I think you're right.
they're 9 and 10 now, so they pretty much do their own thing.
When you have written something that you're very pleased with or you worked very hard on, are you tired or are you exhilarated? Do you need to take a nap? Do you want to go for a walk? Are you happy, tired? What do you feel like?
I think for me, I'm excited when I complete something and write something that's been picked or chosen. San Diego Public Library short story contest, I've been chosen twice for my stories. And after that, I've been super excited. I want to get on to writing something else. Like right now, because it's hard to find time to write, but right now I'm signed up for 3 writing classes at the local colleges because I'm going to do it. I'm going to get back into it. And it's good because that's where I get all my ideas from and everything like that. It's hard to do something on your own sometimes. Got to be really motivated, but with a class, you can definitely get that going. So that's my goal now to jumpstart my writing again.
That's pretty great. 3 different classes?
Yes.
What are the classes that you're taking?
It's 2 creative nonfiction writing classes, and then the other one's a novel writing class.
And what
Oh.
college is it? Because we have to promote San Diego. Go Padres.
Yeah, it's the Grossmont College for the novel writing, and then Mesa College for the creative nonfiction classes.
Evening classes?
Yeah, but they're online, so everything is online. You get a writing assignment, reading assignment, and then I think it's pretty easy. I have enough credits for an English minor, plus the certificate of creative nonfiction. I've already pretty much taken all the classes. I just keep going. I'm an engineer by trade. So since I'm an engineer and then I'm doing English classes, I'm like totally using a different part of my brain.
Okay, you're a little genius over here. I didn't know. You got both sides of your brain going. Are people surprised to hear that you're a creative writer, nonfiction and fiction? What's the response that you get?
They're stunned and they say things like, "Oh, I always wanted to write too, but haven't had time." And what do you write about? Stuff like that. They'll ask questions like that.
It's different from when you were acting, I'm sure, when they say, "So what movies have you been in?"
Back then, there was no cell phones were there, but not quite there. It's not like they are right now. We could post everything. So yeah, if I was doing stuff right now, I'd definitely be posting on Facebook, but there was no Facebook back then. There was none of that.
So talking about San Diego, because this is the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild. Are you a native?
Yeah, my dad grew up here. He was from Texas, so he grew up here, and then my mom was from Taiwan, and so my dad met my mom in Taiwan, brought her here, and we lived overseas. I lived in the Philippines when I was in elementary school, lived in Vegas, then my dad got out of the military and we moved to San Diego. So I could say I'm a native. I've been here since I was about 12, so it's
Okay.
been quite a few years. High school, yeah, middle school and high school here.
And you do like the Padres. I forget what your answer is.
I do. We just went to a Padres game when it was a Taiwanese cultural celebration. Just went there. It was hot, but it was fun. Very
Yeah.
hot. I went on Sunday.
How'd it go? Who won?
You know what? Good question. I was so hot. I think Padres won.
You sound like just like me. I'm like, look, I'm wearing a hat. I just want to have a beer and eat and quote and yell. Well, this has been a real pleasure talking to you. Is there anything you would like to add? Anything that I didn't ask you want to say about your writing or the guild?
You know, I think I want to say that if you keep writing and keep pushing yourself and critique groups and classes and just trying to hone in that skill, it really pays off. It really works really well. And I believe that definitely. Because when I wrote the novel, I just wrote, it was 100,000 words. And I don't remember, I didn't ask me like, so who is this? Who's your character? Who's the antagonist for your character? I'm like, the what? What are they doing? Like, he's fighting himself. And she's just like, yeah, I don't think so.
But see how heartfelt that is? I bet you it's good just because of that. You just went for broke.
Yeah.
It just says a lot about you, and it says a lot about what you have to say, whatever it is. Because if you got nothing to say, you're not writing 100,000 words. Thank you so much for what you do for the guild, because that's a big deal. Reading the manuscripts, I'll have to send you one, because you sound like you'd be terrific. I'm sure that you are terrific. It was just great talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thank you.
My
It's fun.
pleasure. Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye.